All right, I guess it's just after 5, so we'll get started here. Howdy, my name is Ryan Frederick. I'm the Vice Chairman for Anomaly Con. It's a local steampunk and science fiction convention here. Anomaly Con's happening in a couple weeks.
I'm Josh Seibert. I don't really have an official title. I just kind of show up and do what they tell me to. So.
And this is the media and steampunk and media panel. Steampunk in the media. So, going to be a little underprepared, unfortunately. The normal panelist that we had planned was sick today and wasn't able to make it. So, when it comes to steampunk in media, I think one of the best places you'll find it is in Studio Ghibli's works. Recognize many of the titles like Kiki's Delivery Service, Howl's Moving Castle. Pretty much any of their movies that you pick will have various elements of steampunk, whether it's the steam engines themselves or some of the social aspects that you find in a lot of steampunk media.
How would you define steampunk? Just in case people aren't familiar with what steampunk is.
A lot of people would define steampunk as essentially Victorian science fiction. First best examples are works by Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, H.G. Wells, with movies and books like The Time Machine, and in general, anything that H.G. Wells put out has those sorts of elements of a future that the people of the late 1800s predicted, where
Basically where instead of having gas-powered things take over the world, so we have a lot of things that are powered by fossil fuels, by nuclear power and things like that. Essentially it's a world where it's powered by steam as opposed to what we have now. So basically it's like technology took a whole different curve from what really happened. And so you have a lot more clean burning equipment. A lot of things are different in the way they function, the way they look and things like that. And that's kind of where you get a little bit more into the difference in how the looks evolved, how people dress, how people talk, how people act versus the industrial world that we live in today.
Yeah, so one of the ideas envisioned in that is not a world where you put a little bit of gas in your car and it just goes, but a world where everything is in macro scale, where you have pipes moving the steam. You can see the work being done, and you can see the effects that it produces. This has been revived in recent years, starting with in their early 80s, I believe. The term steampunk was coined. There's some authors in the 80s writing books, and since then the genre and many of the concepts have exploded into TVs and movies. Picking another anime example, there's a movie called Steam Boy, which is not a Miyazaki film, but it's a great example of that late 1800s ideal of a future where everything could be powered by steam.
some of the things that kind of touch on the concepts a little bit without necessarily delving all the way into it. Things like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a movie that has a lot of steampunk concepts in it. The Golden Compass is another one that has a lot of just steampunk type aspects in it. And I think it's something that you start to see more and more of as time progresses, as people just get more into it and people are made aware of what it is and start, I could really get on board with this. And, you start seeing more movies, more TV shows, more books, and just more general interest in the genre.
What would you say would be a good introduction to steampunk for someone who's not familiar with it? What should they watch or read first?
Do you have any preferences?
Not specifically. I think that it's easiest if it's something that you haven't really you have no clue what's going on. It's easier to get into some of the more recent, more mainstream productions that aren't like totally steampunk, and then just kind of from there backtrace into the stuff that's more involved. And at least for me, that was a little bit better of a tactic, because then I had heard a little bit before about what it was before I really started to learn about it, and it was kind of overwhelming, and it kind of made me lose interest a little bit initially, just because when somebody comes at you and throws this whole alternate reality at you and you've got no clue what's going on, it's a little overwhelming. But then if you just kind of start a little bit at a time, stuff like the Studio Ghibli movies are, I think, a really good thing to get into. Just they're easy to watch, they're not too terribly crazy, and it just kind of piques your interest as far as what could be going on in an alternate history. So.
Movies I've already mentioned, specifically Howl's Moving Castle is a great example, as well as Steam Boy. I think specifically Steam Boy represents a lot of the classic elements of steampunk, the steam-powered mechanisms, Victorian England with a slightly imperialist American, and some of the social ideals that are going revolve around those concepts. Book-wise, there's quite a lot out there to read these days. There's a number of steampunk story compilations out there that I'd recommend. There's an editor and a writer named Jeff Vandermeer, and he edits wonderful steampunk story compilations. So going out to any of your favorite book websites and looking up Jeff Vandermeer would be a great way to get started in reading, figuring out what kind of stories you like. As far as TV shows, I can't think of too many that were overly that used a lot of those steampunk elements to it. There's, in general, a lot of anime that has a historical view. Will often have some elements of steam-powered societies, but I can't really think of any American television that you see that in.
No, off the top of my head, it's more the movies, really.
And yes?
You touched just briefly on the social aspects of steampunk, and I know typically when people talk about steampunk, you think so much about the visual. Could you talk a little bit more about the social aspects?
That's not really my area of expertise. I really don't think I'm the right person to ask, unfortunately.
Well, do you find, because you run a con, do you find that most of the people are coming at it from the visual? They like to dress up, or they like to decorate stuff, or that kind of thing, and they're not really into that social part of it?
I think the costuming aspect, which I was about to bring up, so thank you for that, is one of the ways that a lot of people get into it. There's a group on Facebook called the Colorado Steampunks. That's where the people who run Anomaly Con met. We would dress up in steampunk clothing and go out and tour museums and art exhibits and such. And I think that's still one of the biggest elements that we see at the conventions is the people coming to dress up and trade stories and talk the craft of dressing up for the events. So if you're into the visual element, that's a great way to get started and get interested in steampunk, as well as to buy a vest or buy a corset and start dressing up.
There's a pretty big focus in the steampunk community on like making costumes and putting together things that wouldn't necessarily be used for anything else. You know, I see a lot of everything from old light bulb sockets to copper pipes to all kinds of things that people just will take and put together into other things. And then you have people who, and it's really neat to see some of these people actually take all of this junk and they purpose it into actual like working mechanical devices and things like that. And so it's kind of nice to see also at, you know, Anomaly Con, other places where people gather to do steampunky type stuff, where people kind of show off some of the stuff that they've created. So it's not just about costumes, but it's also about creativity and, you know, showing what you can do with just whatever, just anything. So it's kind of neat.
For those of you that are interested in possibly seeing an American television show in the steampunk genre, there is was a serious effort to get a TV show called Lantern City off the ground. Some very high-profile television actors were involved. I think Bruce Boxleitner was the one kind of leading that movement. A couple of his co-stars from Babylon 5 were involved as well. If you're interested in seeing that sort of thing come to fruition, I would encourage you to look them up on Facebook or other social media. They're still out there and active on the social media side of things, and let them know that you're interested. And hopefully they can convince a television studio to invest some money in them. So the more fans we can drive their way, the more likely it is to happen. I was wondering if anyone would like to share maybe some of their favorite steampunk books, TV shows I haven't mentioned yet, movies.
The thing that really got me into steampunk was a friend recommended the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences novel series. That was just, it was easy enough to enter into that world if you read science fiction or fantasy at all, which I do, and kind of get a feel for what steampunk was like, and just had really likable characters. I think they're on their 4th book now. Pip Valentine? I have to look. I don't remember the author. I have one in my purse conveniently. Pip Valentine and T. Morris are the 2 authors on it.
Okay, I haven't heard of that series.
It's really fun. It's following Books and Brawn, 2 agents for this English Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences that go and investigate these different phenomena. It's good fun.
Are there any kinds of like video games or anything you'd also recommend in that genre?
Oh my god. As far as video games go, there is a seemingly endless number. for sure. There is in the puzzle platformer genre. There's SteamWorld Dig,
Oh yes.
which is a lot of fun. Trying to think. There's just
Oh, SteamWorld Heist came out this year. That was in the same world as that.
Okay.
It had like Steam Powered Giraffe did some music for it.
okay.
Because the
Really?
music, yeah.
Oh, cool.
There's actual full songs in it.
Okay, yeah, Steam Powered Giraffe is a lot of fun.
Oh, the musical aspect of these are something you might want to talk about too.
There is quite a bit of steampunk music out there that you can find. Steam Powered Giraffe. Is one of the most widely known groups. I can't think of the other.
I'm not.
Professor
music.
Elemental.
Professor Elemental. We've had a number of them as guests at Anomaly Con. French and the Punk is coming this year, which is a great group. BB Black Dog from England was in Denver a couple of years ago. Played a couple of shows outside of Anomaly Con as well. They're a great three-man group out of England. It's just they have some pretty interesting music. I'm trying to think, what's the Thank you. Abney Park is the other very, very well-known steampunk musical group. It's still a somewhat nebulous genre to define. Having been inspired by literature of the late 1800s and the term coming from a couple of authors in the mid '80s. It's hard to pinpoint what one might classify as an original steampunk, or the original steampunk music, or as the source of the inspiration. So a lot of it comes down to how the band presents themselves, their costumes and their set pieces and so forth.
So similar to hair metal or visual case stuff?
Yeah, be a pretty good way of putting it. There is a bit of a sensation 2 or 3 years ago when Justin Bieber put out a quote-unquote steampunk music video. It was Christmas themed. Everyone was sure that steampunk was going to die. Which of course it hasn't happened. Regardless of your opinions on Justin Bieber, steampunk is a perfectly fine genre and anyone can use it. So, there's one other game I really wanted to mention. I can't think of the name of it, but it should be easy to find really quickly here.
Like Codename Steam or no?
Codename Steam is a great game. It's a turn-based strategy game. Unless I'm mixing up my games.
This is the one that's like by Intelligent Systems, turn-based strategy.
Yeah, it's a turn-based strategy game. It's a great steampunk game. There's another game for the Nintendo DS back in the day called Nostalgia. That is another great example. It's a couple of English explorers and their airship exploring the uncharted parts of the world. Those are more story-driven games. There's a great game out there called Guns of Icarus Online, which, if you're a fan of first-person shooters is in that same genre, where as you take on the role of a member of an airship, and you have a captain fly in the airship. In the airships, you're engaging in airship battles, and your job is to man the guns, fix the ship as the battle goes on. It's quite a bit of fun.
I think some of the, really anything that has gnomes in it that I've played has kind of a steampunk aspect to it, because you have the clockwork, pretty much everything, and it's a lot of steam-powered stuff. And
yeah, right along that theme. People don't seem to give it credit for it, but I would absolutely say World of Warcraft is a great steampunk game. It's got a lot of the same visual styles, the retro-futuristic feel, some of the steam-powered gadgets.
a lot of the Final Fantasy games have a very strong steampunk aspect to them. Maybe not totally throughout the game, but then you have, you know, the airships get a lot of credit in the Final Fantasy games, and then there's typically some total underground civilization where everything's made out of gears and steam-powered stuff, and well, very little until you get into certain Final Fantasy games is actually like electricity-powered, nuclear-powered, things like that. It's all kind of alternative fuels, so it's, you might not necessarily think of that when you think of steampunk, but if you go back and look at it, there are a lot of those aspects to it. So.
Any other questions?
Actually, I was just wondering, because you said you have Anomaly Con coming up, could you tell us when it is and where it is and what you have planned for attendees? Like if somebody were to walk in the door, what would they find?
Sure. Anomaly Con is, gotta get the exact dates. Anomaly Con is traditionally the last full weekend in March. This year it's March 25th through the 27th. It's the Friday through Saturday. It's at the Hyatt Hotel in the Denver Tech Center. Anomaly Con is a heavily author and artist driven. We have a lot of artists and authors, both in science fiction, fantasy, and in steampunk genre coming. I can't think of any of our headliner guests off the top of my head. I just drawing a blank, but we'll have a number of great steampunk performances. French and the Punk, steampunk duo, I believe, are coming. We have, I want to say 40 on the author and artist side. I believe we have about 40 artists and authors. We have something like 6 tracks of paneling going at any given time, talking about everything from how to get started writing to what does steampunk mean, how to get your books published. It's certainly a great networking event for anyone who wants to get started being an author or an artist. For steampunk, besides performers, we've got several competitions, a costume contest for steampunk costumes, as well as a gender-neutral beard and mustache contest. We accept applicants with any sort of creative fake hair you care to dress up with. We've got a lot of kid-focused paneling. Last year we had the Little Shop of Physics from Fort Collins down. There's a lot of interesting experiments there. Don't know.
I know that this year there's Minion Con going on, so there's going to be basically an entire mini convention that's dedicated to kids, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of sciencey things, and
that's on Friday, right?
that's on Friday. And
So that's a new, something new we're trying this year, where we've invited a number of schools to come in and run a miniature convention for them Friday in the morning, including some of the same artist and author tracks, and give them a chance to learn what steampunk is and what that's about. I've been told the vendor room is one of the best vendor rooms in the state, or the convention scene. It's a great eclectic fair of steampunk items and accessories. If you're looking for a particular piece for your steampunk costume, it's a great place to shop for it. And I think one thing that makes Anomaly Con special is it's very easy for attendees to interact with the guests. A lot of our panels are small and intimate, not quite this small. But, our guests are also very available at their tables to meet with people, answer other questions, chat.
I will say it's definitely a great place for networking. I met last year at Anomaly Con, I met some really cool people who I've become good friends with over the course of the year. Just people who were out there at their artist table or their author table, just hanging out, talking to people. There's a very big focus, I'd say, on networking. There's a lot of really cool people who go to Anomaly Con. So even if you're not going to get the steampunk aspect of it, you could go just to meet people and you would still come out happy. So
we also have the premier steampunk sport, which is called tea dueling. It's an interesting event of psychology and dexterity, where you try to you dunk a particular cookie in tea and try to psych out your opponent and eat your cookie before it collapses. It sounds like a weird event, but we have the country's #1 tea dueling judge come to Anomaly Con every year and run several of these events. So if you're interested in watching, or if you're interested in participating, it's very easy to do so.
How do you get tickets?
At this point, registration is closed, but you can get tickets on site. Anomaly Con is, I don't know what the door prices are, but we've always been very, very reasonable. I think registration for the entire weekend at this point is going to be $40. And that's available at the door all weekend, so.
this is considerably less than some things you could be doing with your weekend. So.
Do you have like a website?
Anomalycon.com. There you can Google Anomaly Con. That should pull it up. I still have trouble spelling anomaly sometimes, so that may be the best way of finding it. So, all the information about the event, or as much as possible, is available on our website. List of all our guests and authors. I try to do my my best to actually make sure the website is up to date and relevant. So check that out if you've got questions, specific questions.
When did Anomaly Con get started?
This is year 6, right?
This is year 6. As I said, the group of us met through the Colorado Steampunk's Facebook group. Some people are still participating, but I dropped out a while back. It's still a pretty active community on Facebook if you're interested. But we were dressing up and going to other events like Starfest and meeting up for photo shoots and so forth. And we decided that it would be great to have a little convention of our own. We could host for other people. So we got together in 2010 and started planning. Late 2009 is when the idea started. And we were thinking a March convention and didn't quite pull it together that year. So came back, kind of got things sorted out, and really started late 2010 to put the first convention together, and we ran it, I want to say March 23rd. It was a 2-day event the first year, Saturday and Sunday, at on the Auraria campus. And we've been kind of growing steadily ever since. So.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than the Tivoli Center now, but
yeah, we didn't know who would show up besides us to the first event, so we found a group that would help us at the Auraria campus, and we ran it in the Tivoli Event Center. We thought if we could get 100 people, that would be a great showing, and we had 600 people show up the first year, which was a bit overwhelming. So we managed to we managed not to keep the number of fires to 1.
I heard about that.
Yeah. And it was outside the building, so it wasn't even our responsibility. But we've been, like as I said, we've been growing steadily ever since.
How many people do you expect this year?
I expect 1,600. I think. We grew pretty big the first 2 years, and it's kind of tapered off a little bit, but we gained a few hundred every year. So.
New Justin Bieber fans.
Yes. Steampunk is where it's at. If they doesn't matter where you hear about it from. So. Oh. So, back when we were first running the convention, we had a side project we called Radio Steam. It was a podcast styled on the old radio dramas. So we would write episodes and record them, and those episodes are still available online. You can go to radiosteam.com. Check them out. I think we did, I want to say we did 5 seasons, about 20 episodes each of of the show before we called it quits. It was a lot of fun. If you're interested in another take on steampunk, that's kind of our own interpretation. We would get together once or twice a month to record voices, record the actors, and then we would edit in sound effects and post those online. At some point, I'm trying to get those out to a wider audience as well. Looking at possibly moving those or copying those to YouTube at some point. Maybe some other venues. So definitely check that out if you're interested.
Well, most audio dramas that I listen to online are more science fiction-y. Are there other Steam ones that you can think of besides the one that your group did?
I can't. There was one. Dirigible Days, and I don't. That was one I kickstarted. I kickstarted back about 5 years ago, and I don't know where they're at right now. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, I'd definitely look them up as well. Josh wasn't around then, so he wasn't.
Yeah, no, I was living up in Alaska at the time, so that's another story though.
And I guess I'll pitch that we're also looking for volunteers still. So if you're interested in helping run these sorts of events in the future, you're welcome to volunteer. You can talk to one of us at Ops at the convention if you want. You can. There's a form on our website you can fill out if you're interested in more information. And then we're always looking for help between conventions, getting things ready for the next year. So looking for any and all sorts of help that can be provided. So whether that's basic website or graphics design work, or planning and organizing events, that sort of thing. We run, we're usually at a lot of other conventions in the area. I think we have a pretty good relationship with the other conventions, and we trade promotion space and table space with them. So there's a table for our event in the dealer's room today. And we are at other events in the area. Denver County Fair is a big one. That one's a lot of fun. We usually do something like a zombie shooting range or something. Something along those lines. We're always looking for help. If you want to sit at a table for a little while in exchange for a free badge, definitely looking for volunteers there as well. So.
What else is there to talk about?
Happy to stay and answer questions for a little while if you want.
I think we're doing pretty good for not really having anything prepared for this panel.
Nice.
The bottom line is steampunk is pretty much all over the place if you know where to look for it. So, movies, TV shows. Well, we didn't really establish that there were a whole lot of TV shows, but movies, games, books.
In some ways, for example, the show Firefly has this steampunk sort of feel, wild
element to it. Yeah. Do you guys do
West.
any? Have you heard of Victor, Colorado? How they have the steampunk weekend there? Are you guys
Victor.
part of that?
Doesn't ring a bell. is certainly a lot of interest in steampunk in general in Colorado. I didn't mention the Denver Victorian Society, which is another steampunk group in the area. I'll have to look into that, the Victor.
Yeah, they have a weekend of just all steampunk. It's a mining town.
Okay.
And it's the whole town
Wow.
is steampunked out, so yeah.
I'll have to check that
They
out.
do trains and everything, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you guys were a part of that too.
No, I don't think we've done anything. We generally stick to Denver. We've done a couple of events down in Colorado Springs. There's a lot of steampunk, smaller steampunk groups in Colorado Springs. You can look up if you're interested. So.
So, are there any? What are the URLs and stuff for all this stuff? Where can we find more about all this?
Like I said, you can find more information about Anomaly Con at anomalycon.com. You'll find information about the Anomaly Con, the events, the guests we're having, how to volunteer, and where the hotel is. I mentioned Radio Steam is radiosteam.com is our podcast. Well, our podcast on hiatus. There has been some attempts in the group to bring it back, but nothing successful yet. Facebook, you can look up, do a search for Colorado Steampunks. It should be the first one.
Twitter, Instagram?
We do have some of those, don't we? We actually, we have a couple of people who kind of manage that for us, so I don't think about it too often. You can find us on Twitter at Anomaly Con. I think we're on Instagram under Anomaly Con. We have a Tumblr account where we post some kind of steampunky stuff every once in a while, as well as some blogs during the event. You can look at on Tumblr, just look for Anomaly Con. We're on Google+. We've got Anomaly Con there.
Facebook.
Facebook. We do have a Facebook page for Anomaly Con itself. I don't know if we have anything on Instagram or any other websites. So.
You mentioned that Anomaly Con has a big outreach for the younger audience or so, like more of the all ages stuff. Is there any focus at the convention for people who are not all ages, like the 18+ crowd?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot for older people to do. I'm pretty happy with the age range or convention pulls in. We are trying to focus a little bit on bringing in some younger people this year, but I think our median age range for the convention is actually about 18 to 35, which is a little older than most than the average age for most conventions, I think. There's some mature events in the evenings that are indicated as such on the program, which is already posted on the website at this point. You can go take a look at those events. And there's plenty of networking opportunities for finding other things to do late at night during the convention.
Yeah.
more along the lines of many parties and rooms.
Those ones are typically, you go around and meet people during the day, and then if they like you, they'll invite you to those. So. say? I don't know. I mean, I'm 27. I don't really run out of things to do there, so it's.
I run the
it's pretty
convention,
good.
so I can't do anything there. So
Yeah, that does put it down for performance a little bit, but during the time when I'm not otherwise running a panel or watching the room or something like that, there's usually quite a bit to do. So
shutting down those parties can be interesting when they get a little too rambunctious and start disturbing the normal hotel guests. So.
went to some pretty crazy ones here at Starfest last year.
Yes.
They've already put warnings in the hotel rooms and pages about like quiet hours are 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. We're gonna see how that goes.
Yeah, no, they wound up coming around and starting to shut those down around 4 in the morning last year. So It's
We
like,
do
okay,
have-
you guys need to go to sleep at this point.
The nice thing about Anomaly Con is we've never had to shut down an underage drinking, but since we've got mainly an older crowd, they parties do get loud at times, but they also shut down way before 4 a.m.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Yeah. So I'm usually not up too late dealing with that stuff. So. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm happy to stay a few minutes and answer any other questions you have. So,
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks.
One other thing, there are at least, my group is putting on at least 2 other steampunk panels this weekend. So definitely keep an eye out for those and check those out because those are not going to be so last minute.